This is the reading of The Only American from Our Village, written by Arun Joshi, read by Prerna Padlikar. Dr. Khanna was easily the most outstanding immigrant physicist at the University of Wisconsin. Personally, he considered himself to be the finest of all physicists, immigrants or native. He was also among the dozen or so best dressed men on the campus. When he was 40, Dr. Khanna, his wife Joanne, and their two sons decided to visit India, the country that Dr. Khanna had left 15 years earlier and where his fame had preceded him. The 4-week trip was a success by all accounts. He was received by an official of the Council of Scientific Research. He addressed a conference on interplanetary radiation and inaugurated 3 well-attended seminars. He met the president and prime minister. He was offered many jobs, each of which he politely declined. His wife and children were worshipped by his relative, whom they had never met before, and for whom they had brought Gillette razors, pop records, and a mass of $1 neckties. The records and the neckties were unusable because the relatives had neither record players nor suit, but the razors were greatly prized, especially by the women who saved them for their teenage sons. The last of the 4 weeks, Mrs. Khanna and the children went off on a sightseeing tour. Dr. Khanna delivered his final talk at a college in his former hometown. The talk went well. He was introduced to the audience in glorious terms, and the boys stayed quiet, which was not natural for them. He was thanked profusely and seemed endlessly by the lecturer in physics. Some of the audience stopped by on their way out to bid their humble farewell with folded hands. At the end of them all, an old man came and insisted on talking to Dr. Khanna. "I am Ashtam Farosh of the town," the old man said, staring up at Dr. Khanna. His eyes were heavy with cataract. The grease on his jacket shone in yellow light. Dr. Khanna looked on, puzzled. The principal was embarrassed. "Mr. Radhe Mohan," he explained, "sells court papers in front of the district court." "Yes," the old man repeated. "I am Ashtam Farosh of the town. I knew your father. I am very happy to see you. I came here only to see you because I am only an Ashtam Farosh and do not understand such matters. Nor do my sons because they are not even matriculates. I have not been out of this town. I live in the village which was also your father's village and is therefore your village. Ha ha, I can take you there if you like." "I had been to our village when I was a boy," said Dr. Khanna hastily. He was glad he could say that because some trick of the old man, a slant of the lip, a glint in the eye, the accent which had also been his father's, has made him uncomfortable. "I have been to our village several times," he repeated. "I know when you came with your father, you always came to my house because your father and I were very close to each other, like brothers. And I was not then the Ashtam Farosh because I had property and I did not have to be an Ashtam Farosh. I lived in style. Of course, all that does not interest you. I know that." There was a pause. The principal, who had been trying to put an end to this unexpected encounter, edged Dr. Khanna toward the door. The Ashtam Farosh put his hand on Dr. Khanna's shoulder and began again. Darkness gathered on the grounds outside. "He was a good student, the best. I sat at the same desk, so I know. I carved my name on the side of the desk. Your father did not want to spoil the wood, so I carved his name on his side. Before he died, he went and looked for the desk, and believe me, it was still there. So were the names. It was very strange. I had not expected the names to be there. Your father's name is on the honors board too. Mine is not there because I failed in matriculation, but his name is there. If you like, we can go and have a look. He stood third in the state. Maybe you don't know it. Standing third in 40,000 boys was no joke. He won a scholarship as he always did. He wanted to take up a job, but his mother said he must go to college, so he went to Lahore. I'm told he made a mark there, but I did not know. I saw him only when he came home for vacation. If he had made a mark, he did not let it get to his head. He was always the same with me. I wanted to know about the dancing girls of Lahore, but he did not know about such things. But he had brains. Even I could see that. I met him every summer, several summers running. Then he took a job somewhere in Lucknow or Kanpur or Allahabad. I don't know. You must know better. I saw him when his mother died. He cried a lot. Then he locked up the old house and went away. I did not see much of him for 20 years, only once or twice when he brought you and your sisters to see the village. He came back after he retired. He looked old, older than his years, but he was happy. He was very proud of you. He told everyone what all you had done. He got angry with me because I was not interested in what you had done. He used to say you would be a big government man when you come back. He would say you were coming back in 1 year, in 2 years, anytime. Then you got married and he was quiet for many months. But he started talking again. He said you were the only American from our village. I asked him once what was so great about being the only American from our village. He said it was an honor. Some of us used to go for walks. He talked all the time. He talked only of you. We got fed up with his talk, to tell you the truth. We had a foot in the grave, all of us. What did we care for your achievements? What you did and what you did not do. I told him so one day. He was angry with me. I suppose I shouldn't have said that. He stopped coming with us. He did not go for walks for a while. Then he started to go by himself. He chose different timings and took a different route. But I would see him now and then. He had a stoop. You are developing a stoop similar to his, if you don't mind me saying so. The Ashtam Farosh paused. He seemed to have lost the thread of his thoughts. Then he started again. After his retirement, he had a shave every other day. We used to go together to the same barber. He would have his shave first because he did not like to wait, but he had to wait anyway while I had my shave. It came to the same thing, but he did not mind that. Some people are strange. Then all at once he started to shave every day. He also had 2 shirts made, 2 new shirts, and a suit. He said it was too costly to have a shave every day in the bazaar, so he bought his own razor, a razor and a cake of soap. I asked him what on earth had got into him. Why in God's name did he have to shave every day? He took me aside and said he was expecting a ticket. What ticket? I asked him. He said he was expecting a ticket from you to visit America, a return ticket. He looked at me when he said that. His eyes twinkled. The Ashtam Farosh fidgeted inside his pocket for several moments and pulled out a beedi. He did not light it. To tell you the truth, I was impressed. Kundan Lal going to America, that was not something I could laugh away. I told some fellows about the ticket, and before the morning, the whole village knew about it. You see what I mean? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have villages like ours in America, but you must try to understand what it meant after the whole village knew you were going to send him a ticket. Did you send him a ticket? The question took Dr. Khanna by surprise. He looked confused. He said, I could not. I did not. I thought as much, said the Ashtam Farosh, cutting him short. Then he did another foolish thing. He turned religious. All his life I had never seen him inside a temple, and now he went there every evening, morning and evening. And that wasn't all. He started even to sing the old fool. What did he know about singing? Yet he would stand with all those old women and sing like a donkey, if you don't mind me saying so. I say this only because it hurt me to see him making a fool of himself. I caught hold of him in the street one day and told him what I thought of him. What do you expect from God? I asked him. Your son? A letter from your son? A ticket? What? Why was he cutting himself off from the rest of us? I asked him. If you were doing well, as he said, what was eating him? Why was he cutting himself off from his friends? I thought he would be angry, but he wasn't. He just stood there in the middle of the street and looked at me, looked right through me as though I were air. Then he went off muttering to himself. I saw him many times after that, but I did not speak to him again. I did not want trouble, to tell you the truth. Then he fell ill. The Ashtaparush lit his beedi, took a deep pull, and on an impulse threw it away. Dr. Khanna could see it smouldering in the veranda. Smoke nauseated him. Outside it was totally dark. The winter night had set in. Why did you not send him the ticket? The Ashtam Farosh asked suddenly. Once again Dr. Khanna was taken by surprise. I could not, he said. I did not have the money. The Ashtam Farosh looked at him puzzled, but he said nothing. Nor did your father have the money, so he stayed home and became quiet once again. The Ashtam Farosh fell silent. His expressions became vague. He let his hand drop into his pocket where they fidgeted with a variety of objects. Of course, he had never had much money. He had a scholarship in school that paid for his fees, but he had only two pajamas and two kurtas, and he had no shoes. We went to school together and came back together. Between the school and our village is the Cho. Do you remember the Cho? It runs in the rain. 9 months it is dry. In summer the sand gets very hot. Have you seen how they roast corn in hot sand? You could roast corn in the Cho. It was half a mile of boiling sand in May that we had to cross. No more, no less. And your father had no shoes. So he would stop this end of the Cho and take a handful of dark leaves and tie them on his naked feet with a string, and he would cross the sand. And if the string came off, he would jump around screaming on one foot while I tied the leaves back on his foot. That is how your father crossed the Cho for 10 years, Dr. Khanna, said the Ashtam Farosh. His tone was not harsh. He was not even looking at him, but somehow Dr. Khanna had the unreasonable feeling that the old man was going to slap him. He wanted to get away. He looked helplessly at the principal, but the Ashtam Farosh stood between them and the doorway. He had begun to talk again in a softer voice as he thought to himself, I told him not to do it. I told him he was being stupid. After another silence, he addressed them again. When he fell ill, your sister came. He asked me to write to you. I sent you a telegram. It cost me 100 rupees, but you chose to reply only by a letter. I did not understand what you said except that you had to attend some conference. I told your father you had a conference. Does he say when he can come? He asked. I told him you had not said when you would come. He must be busy, he said. He did not mention you again. He got better. One day he said, Radhe, let us go and look at our old desk. It was the month of May and it was very hot, but he was feeling better, and I thought a trip to town will do him good. We went in a rickshaw, and the desk was there. It had always been. The same room, the same row, the same place. There were his initials on his side and mine on mine. We went to the honors board and had to look at his name. We started back and came to the Cho. Then the mad thought entered his head. It was such madness, no more, no less. There are no words to describe such madness. He even looked mad to me. He stopped the rickshaw before the Cho. He got off and kicked away his shoes and started plucking at the leaves of dak. He could not tie them because he had arthritis and he could not bend. Tie these on my feet, Radhe, he ordered me. You're mad, Kundanlal, I told him, but he had a bad look on his face and I knew it was no use arguing with him. I thought he would come to his senses when he touched the boiling sand, but I told you he wasn't himself. He stepped into the Cho. I followed him carrying his shoes, hoping he would stop, shouting him to stop. I could feel the sand through my soles, but told you he had lost his head. He walked off the whole half mile. Leaves fell off on the way. God himself could not have stopped him. He had fever by the time he got home. The next day he died. Dr. Khanna winced, but his training in the new civilization had been perfect. I was very sorry to hear of his death, he said calmly. We must go now, Radhe Mohanji, said the principal. He stretched his hand out, but the Ashtam Farosh was gone, shuffling through the dark, a beady in his mouth. That weekend, Dr. Khanna and family boarded a plane for Chicago. At Chicago, they changed as the plane for Madison got aloft. Mrs. Joanne Khanna was heard to say to her husband, What's the matter, darling? You keep staring at your feet. I have been watching you for the last 2 days and you have done nothing but stare at your feet. Since then, a lot of people have been heard to say that. To a psychiatrist, Dr. Khanna has confident that he has periods of great burning in his feet. He has further indicated that he thinks that he has been cursed. Dr. Khanna's output of research since he came back has been zero. He has generally come to be known as the man who does nothing but stare at his feet.